cold as a razor blade, as tight as a tourniquet, like the skin on a dying man. I don't want a piece of the world. I want the whole world. I make my own rules because it's much easier that way. Trust me.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo. We are back for another episode of The Snake Pit, but this time I am not joined by Jake Roberts. He's still coming back from his trip to the UK. Instead, as you can see, I have got none other than Buff Bagwell himself, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, his son. Buff Daddy, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, man?
Hey, dude, I really appreciate you coming on the program. It's fun having guests come on here, and you're one I've been wanting to talk to for a while. You and I have been doing a little work together behind the scenes, and this just felt like kind of the perfect opportunity to bring you on Jake's podcast.
I was very excited when you asked because, as much stuff as we've been doing together and stuff, I was able to pay back a little bit, so it made me feel good and enjoy always, coming online and talking about the business. So let's do it.
All right, man. Well, look, it's one thing that's become kind of pretty customary on this show is that whenever I bring a guest on to replace Jake, we talk about some of their history together. And Mark, I'm not sure if you realize this, but when Jake came to WCW in 1992, you had his first match with the company on August 8th in Chicago at that time. And you were only 22 years old. I'm wondering what you can tell me about working with Jake.
Well, I'm so excited about your very first topic because I have talked about this thing at the UIC or UCI Pavilion in Chicago, Illinois. I've told this story 10,000 times, and every time I've told it, nobody even knows what I'm talking about, so it falls on deaf ears.
Lay it on me. I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, brother, so 1992, I signed in September of 91 with WCW. When I used to tell this story, I used to think it was like at least 5 or 6 years of a struggle and battle to get to WCW. The struggle and the battle is definitely a part of it. But from the day you graduate high school, you're 18 years old, June, July area, it seems. And then in September of 91, so 3 years from the day I graduated high school, with pro wrestling not even in my brain, I signed WCW contract.
Crazy.
That contract I signed was $500 a week to go to school. 1 week into the school, if that, Barry Windham blew his knee out, and they put me on the road in his spot. And I knew it was a big time for me, and I never looked back. That first year, me and Scorpio were tag team of the year. I was rookie of the year. We were world champions that year. 92 was a great year for me, but it also, I was a rookie. So I'm at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago, Illinois. What was the date?
It was August 8th, 1992.
August 8th, 1992. And I'm wrestling Jake the Snake Roberts. And I come up to Jake, and I am petrified of snakes. And I walk up to Jake, and I said, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm Marcus Bagwell. Nice to meet you." I said, "A big fan, I go, "Hey, man," I go, "do we have to do the snake thing?" He goes, "Hey, man," he goes, it's my gimmick." He was super nice, super good to me, but he made me feel real comfortable. But he said, "Man, I've got to do it. It's my gimmick. It's what I do." And I was really thinking back on it and trying to remember. I was really upset about it. I mean, I was physically upset because there's a 20-foot python going to lay on me, bro. It may bite me. It may wrap me up. I don't know. So I'm like, "Okay, man, can you tell me anything?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Just lay still. Close your eyes." He goes, "It's going to stink real bad." He goes, "Just Close your eyes, it'll be over in no time. Man, he hit me with a DDT in front of 500 people or something. Nobody was there. Nobody cared about WCW then. And I laid there, and that snake crawled over me, and it stunk. But I've never been able to tell that story to anybody that had any meaning behind it, like a date and an actual knowledge of because it was just a house show. It wasn't taped. It wasn't TV.
Right.
So that was crazy.
Man, it's so cool that you got his first match, and that again, it's like one of those stories that kind of goes by the wayside and that people don't really have a lot of perspective on.
Well, I think I would have told it more if I knew about it being his first match ever. Now I will talk about it more, because his first match ever just happened to be an indie show. It was, a house show, and it wasn't an indie show. It was a house show. But, so his first match ever, back at WCW was with me, and I didn't know that part of it. I knew his stay wasn't long, and I knew he hadn't been there very long, but still, I didn't know I was the first match of him coming back to WCW. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, first match of that run, and it does make me wonder. This would have been your first time ever meeting Jake, right?
Ever.
Okay. And moving forward, like, what has your relationship been like with Jake?
After that, very few things. Like, I remember in Jacksonville, Florida, another Jake story. Jacksonville, Florida, the Steiners and most of the guys were scared of the snake. And the guys that wasn't scared of the big, slow python, they were scared of the cobra. So Jake would come into the locker room, turn the light off, and throw the cobra in the room. And when the lights came back on, people were hanging from fans. People were screaming, crying. It was crazy. So, and the Steiners are trying to kill it, of course, with boots and knives and guns. So it was always just crazy, chaos. But I wasn't really around him a lot until years later with Dallas Page. And Dallas, he'd gotten sober and done the movie Resurrection, and then my sobriety came in. So very few times met him on the outside in the days of wrestling, more around him during the sober and the new Jake. And it's been a lot of fun that we have got a new relationship going.
Man, cool that you guys have been able to connect and that you can kind of share your stories, because, like, the stories that you guys share are really not unique to you necessarily. A lot of guys really struggled with addiction on the road and dealing with, the bumps and bruises and how you cope with it and coming down from exciting nights and stuff like that. So interesting that you and Jake get to have like a little fellowship and share this thing in common.
Yeah, it really is. Let's just be honest. I think Jake definitely is known as one of the guys that was never going to get clean. But I'm in that top 10 probably of guys that thought that. I didn't have a train wreck of a story, but it was a good enough train wreck. And it was definitely in the top 10 train wrecks. But yeah, and I still hate that there's guys out there still suffering, and I hate it, because I just know you just don't do what I did to get sober. At the end of it, say, you know what, man, my life sucks. You just don't. It don't happen. If you go to rehab 30 days, and then on day 31, you go to a 90-day program. That's 120 sober. You do 90 meetings in 90 days. You get a sponsor, you work and continue to work the steps on a daily basis. Your life is going to be 1% better. It's going to be a percentage better. It's up to you whether it's 1% or 50% better or 100. My life is literally 1,000% better.
Wow.
It's up to you though on what percentage that is, but I can guarantee your life will be better if you do that. Nobody's ever done what I did and said, you know what, man, my life sucks. It don't happen. Your life will be better. Sober is better. I really thought I had it figured out. I really did. I really thought that having a so-called cigarette, having a couple somas and a beer to go play golf, a couple somas and a beer to wind down from the day. It's extremely innocent, and it starts off exactly like that. And I held it together for 5 years, but it is going to become unmanageable.
And does for so many guys. It's so incredible, Buff, to see you and the progress that you're making, and to see what you're doing. And now on the Indies, you were just a tag team champion there in Memphis, and you're out there still getting after it, brother. And you look great. Like you've kept yourself in great condition. It's just fun to watch, and I'm excited to see that journey continue for you.
Thank you so much, man. I'm excited, man. I literally am on fire about two things, and it's about sobriety and about Christ. I just really have found, a new relationship with God through this. One thing I will share is I really believe the biggest part of my success, I don't hear shared very much, but I share it very regularly, and that is you're going to have to find something to replace the drugs and alcohol, something to replace that void. I believe it's three things. That three things can be anything you want, but I believe you're going to need three. My three were God, my relationship with Stacey Brown, and my health, in that order. Now, it could be two things. It could be softball, fried chicken, and ice cream. But listen to me, you're going to have to fill that void with something, or you're going to go back. So the thing I hear in the rooms is that even the people that come in very anti-God, no matter how long it takes, God ends up being one of those three in that void you're trying to fill. I just happen to already have a decent relationship with God before doing this thing called sobriety. So it was an easy fix for me. But God, Stacey, and my health are my three. I challenge you to find your three, and you'll find yourself looking at 22 months sober.
God bless you, bro. God bless DDP for all the good he's doing, and God bless Stacey. I've had the pleasure of getting to talk to her on a number of occasions. She's such a lovely human being, and cool to see you, man. That's a big step is getting yourself around the right kind of people, and you certainly have.
And it's the toughest a lot of times. I mean, when you're talking about your regular routine of who you call to find who's going to have a beer with you at 12 o'clock, that list gets shorter and shorter, and it just gets uglier and uglier. And to change those guys, I mean, it's the hardest thing to do is find that new crowd. But if you can do that, man, that's the key, because you're just, unless all of you get sober, which is not usually what happens, then you're just going to be really fighting an uphill battle. You're going to have to change your view. You're going to have to change your friends.
Man, I'm glad you're around a new crowd, and I'm really glad I get to introduce you to our crowd here on the Snake Pit. We've got some great listeners, and I know they're going to love hearing your stories, brother, because today we're looking back to WCW in 2000. I feel like it's pretty timely with this Dark Side of the Ring episode about who killed WCW just coming out. So we're going to look back to 2000 and the New Blood Rising pay-per-view. And before we get there, though, I did want to talk to you a little bit about the pay-per-view that happened prior. And following it, the company is in absolute turmoil. At Bash at the Beach 2000, that whole thing happened between Hogan and Vince Russo. And as a result, both Hogan and Eric Bischoff are gone, and the situation is going to morph into a legal battle. Mark, do you remember much about this situation between Russo and Hogan?
I remember all of it. It was so above my pay scale, man. I mean, you got to realize, even though I was always out of my pay scale, I rode with guys in that pay scale. I mean, I was best friends with Sting and Luger and all the top guys, but man, it was just so much. Stinger at the time was having personal problems and having to fix that at home, and it was me and Luger were, we were doing our thing, which wasn't really good, but we were doing it. And it just all the pieces were falling off, man. All the wheels were coming off. So, no, I was never in this locker room with seeing what happened. No, I don't quite know what was going on, but I just know that it was the only story I can tell that makes sense and kind of ties it all together is the first day Vince Russo came in the company. Vince Russo came in the company and he had a talk with what he considered all of the A talent. 30, 40 guys maybe was what I would consider. I would not choose me being one of the top guys, but they did. So Vince had a one-on-one topic conversation with me, and the conversation was very brief. It was he believed that the problem with WCW was that the people that ran it always wanted to be on TV and be stars. Like Dusty and his friends and his stars. It was when Flair ran it, his friends, his stars. And then here comes Watts, his friends, his stars. And then Bischoff came, his friends, he was a star. And that's what Russo's story was. That was the problem with WCW. So Russo, to me, and supposedly to everybody else once we talked, stated that he would never, ever show his face on television with WCW. Now, I'm not sure if you watch WCW much, but
I did.
That didn't last long. That's why it started with the Harris brothers talking, and you could hear his voice, but they were doing all the actions. I don't know the timeline, but it wasn't long before I think he was the world heavyweight champion.
Right. So didn't just put himself on it, became the champion of the company.
Yeah, and beating everybody up with a bat. So, so me as a way down the list guy trying to figure it out, I would say Vince Russo played a part of killing the company, but you can't do that. There's just way too many moving parts. But I can tell you that wasn't a good thing. And a lot of little stuff too, just like, little things that I can admit, I can talk about. It's like the Judy Bagwell on a pole match. I had a lot of things were happening in my career too at the time that didn't make sense, and my mom was on the road with me, and I had her to be like, look, be cool about this, Mark. They're just ride this out. You're making great money. Just do your thing. So I had her as a mother, helping me do the right thing. So I went to Cincinnati, Ohio one day, showed up there, and they had one of the Italian guys.
Oh, like Vito?
Big Vito. Big Vito we go in the finish room. We're 1 week away. We're the Monday before the pay-per-view Judy Bagwell on the pole match. And we're trying to build them up between me and Chris Canyon. And we go in the room with me and Big Vito, which is obviously just me getting a win over Big Vito going into the pay-per-view match. I walk into the room, and I get explained to me from Johnny Ace that Big Vito's beating me. And I just had talked to my mom at lunch about whatever they throw at me, I'm going to say yes. So I said, how do you want to beat me? And Johnny Ace and Big Vito both were like, what? And they start trying to figure out how they're going to beat me. Oh, well, I can see the excitement in Big Vito's face. Well, I can do that. That swinging neck breaker DDT thing I do. I said, well, I got a cup of coffee in my hand. My legs are crossed, calm as can be. I said, man, I just had broke my neck, Vito, a year or so ago. Is there something else we can do? Oh, yeah. We can do anything you want, anything you want. And I'm going along with everything. And then all of a sudden I realize something. I go, wait a second, Johnny. I go, Big Vito, do you have a match on the pay-per-view this Sunday? And I saw Johnny Ace's face go, like, how did he figure it out? And I go, and of course, the coffee gets set down, and I go, Johnny, I came in here to do the right thing. Please tell me you're not having me lose to Big Vito going into a pay-per-view match that you were advertising Judy Bagwell on a pole match. Tell me I'm wrong. So I'm walking toward Vince Russo the whole way, and Johnny Ace is behind me going, Buff, I wouldn't do this, man. That they don't care. They'll fire you. They've already told me they don't care. I'm just telling you, I let it go. Well, I get to Russo, and I can't remember what went down, but it was heated. But he explained it unlike Johnny did. He goes, Bagwell, Canyon's going to be a cameraman, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Johnny, why didn't you tell me that? And he tried to put the heat on me saying, well, you didn't give me time. I said, we had a quarter of a mile walk to get here. You could have told me. So, long story short, all the heat's on me because Johnny didn't say anything. And I go out, and Chris Canyon does something with the camera, and Big Vito beats me. It makes sense all of a sudden, so we do it. But stuff like that was just you just heard one story from one wrestler. So if that much story's happening that far down the list with Buff Bagwell, what's happening up here? I don't know, but a lot was going on.
Dude, it's such a crazy time in the company, and a lot of it was hard to follow. And they always say if you confuse them, you lose them, and that's pretty much what was happening with the fan base at the time. I think a lot of fans there was so many moving pieces. It was hard for everybody to keep up with. And like the big issue with Bash is that Hogan doesn't want to put over Jeff Jarrett. Now I don't know if it's necessarily about Jeff so much as Hogan wants the belt, but Jeff is a ring veteran by anybody's standards at this point. His star was really on the rise with WWF, and then he came back to WCW in October '99 and cracked you with the guitar, as a matter of fact, whenever he made his return. Overall, what did you think about Jeff as a man, as a performer?
Oh, I think Jeff is great inside and out. Jeff was one of my good friends. He was an absolute superstar. He was one of those WWF guys that came to WCW to make us better. I put him right there with Macho coming, with Hulk Hogan coming, with the Nasty Boys coming. Same thing with Jeff Jarrett. Him coming to WCW from the WWF was big and exciting, and we're excited.
A great performer, and that's why the whole thing is so puzzling about like Hogan, not wanting to just do a job for the guy. It's weird. Did you have a decent relationship with Hogan?
I really did. Hulk was great to me, and every time I saw him, he was great. A lot of guys, that big of a star, like Roddy Piper, I hardly ever saw Roddy backstage. Ultimate Warrior, never saw him backstage. If Buff Bagwell didn't see you, you kind of were hid, because I was back there, and I'm in the top guy locker rooms. I'm either in Lex's locker room or Steen's or Bill's or something. I was with the top guys all the time, and I never saw Warrior ever. So Hogan always made himself accessible. He always ate with us. He always, he had his own room, but we'd always go in there and talk to him, and so he was very, very approachable. And very, I call it, he didn't superstar us. I feel like Ultimate Warriors would superstar us, and other guys that came in tried to superstar us, and we were all superstars. So it's just kind of sad it gets like that. But Hogan, to me, was fantastic. I had the pleasure of doing a movie with Hogan, and you posted the picture for me one time where I'm in that movie, No Holds Barred, with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, you had a little cameo role before you were like the big star, which is pretty cool. Little footnote.
It's actually unbelievable. I mean, you can't make it up. Here I am, an extra in a movie making $75, and you're going to tell me, hey, Bagwell, and 3 years from now, you're going to be making $100,000 a year wrestling for WCW, and eventually you're going to be on Hulk Hogan's team. There's no way to believe that.
Right. You can't really write that story for a movie and have it be believable, but you lived it, which is just insanity. Now, when Hogan and Bischoff are departing the company, did you feel like it was a good thing for the company? You're getting some of the old guard out, or did you feel like it was bad in that, okay, the wheels are starting to come off here a little bit?
Oh, it was horrible. It was very bad. I knew it was very bad. But see, the story that was getting through was that we were going to be, we were going on a break, and that Eric Bischoff and the guy on Wonder Years,
Jason Hervey
and Bischoff were going to buy the company. That's the rumor that was going around. The WWF and Vince McMahon buying the company, I don't know how, but it never made traction. It never got told or anything. We showed up in Panama City, and Shane McMahon was there with the WWF trucks. So how they hid that, how they did that, I got no idea. Again, I wasn't a top guy, but I rode with the top guys, and I can tell you, nobody knew what was going on.
Now, your personal relationship with Vince Russo, he's a guy that some folks say they love him, some folks say they hate him. How about you? Did you tend to get along with him pretty well?
That was the only altercation we kind of had, but I think me and Vince got along pretty good. Again, all the rumors said about me are true. As usual, people always say I didn't do it. Everybody in prison's innocent, of course, but I mean, I really wasn't as bad as as it says. I think my name got a little worse during that time, because if you didn't speak up, you got ran over. I mean, just like that. I mean, why would Big Vito be beating Buff Bagwell a week before an advertised pay-per-view match? It shouldn't happen. So I spoke up, and then you saw what happened. So, but with Vince, though, I thought Vince was really great. I liked him personally. I've done I think 1 or 2 podcasts with him afterwards, and it was fantastic, good podcast with him. I enjoyed him. So it ain't like he did anything wrong to me. I just feel like the whole situation ruined a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, it's he was in a tough spot as far as the way that he was handcuffed creatively. He wasn't able to kind of take the liberties that he ordinarily would. But man, I mean, you can tell that things just are disorganized. You were part of the New Blood along with a ton of other guys, and the group was formed in April of 2000 to feud with the Millionaires Club, which is an angle I think most fans can get behind. The young guys trying to push the old guys out. However, by the time the New Blood Rising pay-per-view comes around in August, the angle is essentially over, and it didn't really get much of a payoff. It's just like it points to how disorganized everything was during this period of time, and kind of like I'm sure it was frustrating for you not knowing what you're doing week to week, right?
Well, let me give you an example. I don't even remember. This has got nothing to do with drugs, brother. I don't remember the Magnificent Seven.
Really?
No idea. So it couldn't have been more than a couple weeks.
It was pretty brief.
Maybe it was, but I don't know. I can just tell you, the first time I got asked about anything to do with the Magnificent Seven was about a year ago, and I said, "What are you talking about?" And they go, "When you were in the Magnificent Seven," I said, "I've got no idea what you're talking about." They showed me a picture, and I kind of remembered, but it couldn't have been only a few times we did something like that, because I don't remember none of it. None of it. And it's not drug related. It's not. I don't remember. So if I don't remember, how can I expect the fans to remember? And again, NWO black and white and the red and black. Why do we have 2 colors? I don't even know. I'm not sure. B team is my understanding, but then we did interviews, and it was just, again, you get them confused, you lose. And I was confused, and I'm in the company. So we had a very simple thing going, and it worked. And I think we just started trying to add to it, and it failed.
Well, after Bash at the Beach, you're going to start working with Chris Kanyon, who's doing a DDP ripoff gimmick and attacking your mom with diamond cutters on TV. He'll threaten to break her neck in a match unless you agree to fight him at the next pay-per-view, with her having to be a slave for 30 days if you lost. Mark, to an outsider, that probably sounds like I took some kind of a hallucinogen before we started this podcast, because it doesn't make any sense, but that was the actual storyline at the time. What's your reaction like when this kind of thing is pitched to you?
Again, at the time, you spoke up, you got heat, didn't say a word about this except yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, or whatever what needed to fit, it fit. Gotcha. Didn't say a word about it. I did what I was supposed to do. They told me to do it, I did it. But anybody in their right mind would have probably spoke up and said, why are we doing this? And why is she on the forklift? And why are we calling it Judy Bagwell on the pole? I mean, all of it to this day, I got no idea, because I didn't ask. And because if you ask, you get in trouble. It's called heat. You're supposed to do what you're told. I did what I was told. I went out and had a match with my mother on a forklift, and the match was called Judy Bagwell on a pole match. I don't know.
Hard to wrap your head around it.
It really is. And hear me out. What WCW didn't know is it kind of made sense to people that knew the Bagwells, because the Bagwells owned a lumber company. So having Judy on a forklift was pretty cool to Marietta, Georgia, but it wasn't cool to the world. The world didn't know we owned a lumber company. But people that knew the Bagwells, which is this many people, knew, hey, that must be because you owned a lumber company. And, oh, I get it. But why is it called on a pole? I have no idea why it's called on a pole. But that's what it was called. Judy Bagwell on a pole match.
I'm wondering if they like initially thought they could hang her from a harness or something like that from a pole. I don't know.
I never saw no tryout with the harness or anything. It was always told to us a forklift, and I just assumed it was people just got it wrong when they were saying on a pole, but it was in writing on a pole, and she's on a forklift. So I don't know how that got misconstrued, and it was very, very, very crazy. And here's my mother. I can't remember what she was getting paid, but it wasn't enough. And I remember I sat down with Eric on a plane ride home and got her a $300,000 a year deal. And she was going to be a full-time WCW person. If you remember, my mother is one half of the World Tag Team Championships.
Yes.
Her and Rick Steiner won the belt somehow. So
right.
I got her a deal, and literally the plane flight that I got her a $300,000 deal on, we landed, and she had not pancreatitis, something that explodes. I always forget the words.
Oh, like appendicitis?
No, it's not that one. It's something. We got whatever exploded on the flight, straight to the hospital, and we did a story saying that me and Scotty beat her up, and she was over. It was done.
Wow. So she didn't even get to sign the $300,000 a year contract.
Nope. And then by that time, it was almost the end and everything. So
she would have gotten to sit home for the duration of that contract after the buyout from WWE.
Yeah.
Damn. Timing, brother.
Almost had it.
Now, getting physical and getting involved in creative, like, how did your mom seem to feel about that in general?
She was a tough lady. So, but again, she was still 50-something. So, older lady, but she raised 3 boys and ran a lumber company in the 70s and 80s when women didn't do that. So she was a very powerful woman anyway, very strong. My father whipped me with a belt once in my life. My mother whipped it 10,000 times in my life. So she was the one that swung the belt. She's the one that laid the rules down. She was the boss. We were scared of our father, but she ran the show. And same with wrestling. She had no problem with any of it. She was bruised to hell and back with those diamond cutters, but we kept going with it, and she kept having fun, and she loved it. All the boys loved her, and all the girls loved her too. She was just kind of like the grandmama of the show,
Man, pretty awesome. Yeah, and it's cool to get that perspective because, like, on the surface, a lot of us would, like, I would picture the talent seeing, like, well, she's on TV and, I'm not booked for this one. I'm just working house shows. Like, you'd think some talent would resent it, but no, it's like, it's awesome to hear that people were cool with her being there.
Absolutely. And, she, you think that, she would get a lot of heat and stuff, but I think a big part of it was saved by, it wasn't my idea. So Rick Steiner is the one that threw this idea at WCW, and I think that helped a lot. I think it helped that it wasn't me and my mom and getting a bunch of money, and it wasn't like that. It was Rick Steiner's idea. He threw it at Eric, and Eric said yes, and so yeah. So maybe not. But yeah, so I think he suggested it, kept a lot of heat off of me. So it was, again, it wasn't my idea, so I think he was accepted more. But I think if it would have been my idea and she came in with a bunch of money of a contract, then it may have been a little problem. But, like even that first time she got in the ring, she was told two things, and she didn't do either one of them. She was told not to get in the ring, and she was told definitely don't touch Scott Steiner. She got in the ring, which is what I wanted her to do anyway, and she went to Scotty, and Scotty almost broke her wrist.
Because he wound up grabbing her, right?
Well, she went to grabbing him, and he said, "Listen, lady, you ain't my mama." But he really was against this angle, again, against this storyline. He was really against it because of women in pro wrestling. He was dead against it. But it being his brother's idea kept the heat off me. It wasn't my idea. It was Rick's. So it was Rick's idea, and it worked. It was really good. But she wasn't supposed to go to Scotty, and Scotty's like, he almost broke her wrist.
Well, Chris Kanyon is the guy you're going to be working with at New Blood Rising. Very talented performer, and a guy who was actually the subject of a Dark Side of the Ring episode himself. What can you tell us about being around Chris?
I don't have any stories on this one, man. I mean, none. I mean, Chris was a great guy, a great worker, but we just had two complete different cliques, and we wasn't around each other at all. We really wasn't. I respected him. I was very nice to him all the time. He was very nice to me, very cordial. But I didn't know Chris Kanyon. I didn't know him.
Yeah, it's from what I've been told, a really talented guy, and man, just a tragic story what ended up happening with him, because he's one of those guys. Like a lot of the moves that we see on TV today were actually invented by Chris Kanyon, apparently.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent going on with himself, and kind of unknown. A lot of the guys didn't know the stuff you're talking about, but yeah, he was. He had a lot of stuff going on that was really good, and he was a great worker. But he just a lot of demons going on too.
So, Mark, in the July 24th, 2000 edition of The Observer, there's a story from Meltzer that I didn't even know existed until I started doing research. And I'd love to get your take on it. And this is what it has to say. A trial date of 8/8 has been set for Buff Bagwell in Springfield, Illinois, on charges of battery in the incident where he punched a ring crew member, Daryl Miller. Bagwell's attorney, Ron Stone, issued an innocent plea on his behalf. So, Mark, what do you remember about this circumstance behind the scenes getting into an altercation?
Every bit of it. So the we were leaving Springfield. There's two Springfields. There's Springfield, Missouri, and there's a Springfield, Illinois. Which Springfield is this?
This one was Illinois.
Okay, so believe it or not, they're right across the line together too. So Illinois. So we're leaving the show. This is when things were coming undone. This is when Nitro and Thunder was ran on the same night, and this particular night, me and Luger were main event. So we're literally getting out of the ring, and the guys are trying to clean the ring up, and all the ring crew people are trying to get everything cleaned up and stuff. So we're stepping over rings and trying to get our bags to the car, and Doug Dillinger is helping us get to our car, and there's fans everywhere, and just trying to do the best we can. And during this, dark outside, all that, a big roll of carpet came by and hit Miss Elizabeth, and Lex was like, "Hey man, be careful, bro." And we were of course extremely ill, agitated, trying to get to our car, and when Lex turned around, the guy shot Lex a bird, and I said, "Hey," I said, "say that to his face." And he said, "Nobody's talking to you, bro." I said, "I'm talking to you." And he said, "F you." And as soon as he said F you, I slapped him. Whap! Overhand slap. That slap cost me $25,000.
Holy shit.
So Daryl Miller goes from one slap, he goes and sues the company. The company is going out of business. So they just, instead of suing the company, now he goes and sues me. So he had me for $50,000, and somehow the lawyer got a lien on my property, on my house. I called the lawyer myself, and I said, "Look, what can we do to make this go away?" He said $25,000. Somehow or another, we back and forth, but $25,000. I signed the deal. I paid Daryl Miller $25,000 for one open hand slap.
Man, that is a hell of a slap.
Yeah,
25K.
it was. Hear me out. That or this is exactly the same thing.
Right.
So if I would have known that, it would have been this.
You would have gotten your money's worth then.
Right.
Well, let's get to New Blood Rising in Vancouver. This is kind of the main event of the show. One thing of note is before the show begins, Brad Siegel announces to everyone that separate Thunder tapings are coming to an end, and the working idea is that Thunder is going to be taped along with Nitro as a cost-saving measure. This, of course, means longer days at TV for talents, double matches in some cases, and a pretty big commitment from live crowds to hang in there for whatever 4 or 5 hours of material. And I'm just wondering, what did you think about this announcement at the time? And did it make you a little bit concerned about your future with the company?
Again, man, that whole thought process was above my pay grade. It was, it was one of those things that it just was what it was. You got to do what's in front of you, do the right thing. That day, I do remember going to the gym with Kevin Nash, and we were late getting to the building of all things. My mom called and goes, "Where you at?" I go, "I'm working out." She goes, Get to the building. Brad Siegel's here." And I went, "Well, who's there?" So me and Kevin rolled in real quick. And Kevin, if you check your date, Kevin was in a wheelchair at this time with an injury. And I wheeled Kevin Nash into, and which made us look a little better being late, coming in late and everything. But Brad Siegel saw us and, "Hey, how you doing?" But we didn't hear any of that. We just got told what was going on, kind of. And I just another tire, another wheel fell off.
Yeah, and I guess for perspective, it's like at this point you were pretty okay if you had a contract signed, meaning if the company went out of business the following week, it sucks because it's like, okay, I better start thinking about my future. But a lot of guys wound up sitting home for whatever 2-3 years and just collecting money after WCW went out of business in 2001.
Unfortunately, that was my piece that I didn't have, that I had no control over. Was my contract was up pretty quick, a couple of months. So whenever I signed my contract, I can't remember exactly when, but I can tell you within a month or two, my contract was over. So that's when I did the deal that me and Brad Small came up with, that I thought of. I said, "Look, let's pay Vince the remaining of my contract. Let's just save him this, couple $100,000. Let's save this for him, and let's just sign on to let him know we're part of the team." And Brad Small thought it was a great idea, and so did I. So I saved Vince. I didn't hold Vince to my money. I lost a couple $100,000. Keep this. We're good. And I'm thinking, all right, the very first thing I see is I'm main event on Monday Night Raw. What have I done wrong? Nothing. The next thing I see is I'm gone. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think and thought and still do think that I did the right thing at the time, and it just didn't pan out correctly.
Man, it's a bummer, and I see a lot of fans online talk about like what could have been as far as your future with the WWE. So it's one of those things. It's, I don't know. I think they missed out on an opportunity for whatever reason, spite or controversy or whatever it was that turned things around. But so New Blood Rising, we've actually you covered a lot of the questions I had, which is great. But I'm wondering, coming out of the match afterwards, you and Chris Kanyon, like, did you feel like, okay, not too bad, or did you feel like it was a complete disaster on pay-per-view?
I'll maybe even ever watch that match back, but I think going into it, we were embarrassed. So you can't come out of it too much better. As you said it to me, I remember lowering Mon from the forklift and not being totally humiliated. So I think it overall was pretty good, and it made sense. And there was an ending to the storyline, and I lowered my mother with victory, and it kind of made sense.
It's not great creative, but I've certainly seen worse in wrestling. So it's at least there's that. one interesting thing that happened was that David Arquette is going to come out, and it'll be his final appearance with WCW. He'll do a run-in during the match. And I'm just wondering what's going through your head whenever he had become WCW champion earlier in the same year, 2000.
It was not good. It was definitely everybody knew it was bad that, David Arquette was our world heavyweight champion. It was again above my pay grade though. Who would I even take that to? I couldn't take it to nobody. So I remember talking with Lex and Sting about it and hearing the rumors from Nash on opinions, and everybody's opinion was that it was crazy. It was out of control and nobody knew what to do about it. It was nuts.
Did you have any kind of a personal relationship or spend much time with David Arquette?
I didn't. Hello, how you doing? This nice banner, but that's about it.
And last question, and then I'll let you go. I'm curious about how the locker room morale was at the time. Because the perception from Russo was that Hogan was holding the company down and holding down young talents. This was the first WCW pay-per-view after Hogan's departure from the company. Was there optimism about the future and okay, maybe we can turn this thing around and make things better? Or, was it like, the Titanic had already hit the iceberg at this point?
I don't think there was enough time for any of that to really take place. It just was all gone before we knew it. It was no time to regroup. I think everybody was banking on the rumor I mentioned earlier. Everybody was banking on that Bischoff was going to buy the company. And I remember the last match we had, I'm almost positive, was in Florida. I think it was Jacksonville, and we had the match with Sean O'Hara and Jindrak and O'Hara, I think. Or no, it was Palumbo and O'Hara, I think. And they beat me in Luger. And that night, me and Lex were like, Johnny, are you kidding? Why? And Johnny goes, look, man, don't even complain about it. We're taking a 6-week break. We're going to take a 6-week break, and we're going to come back anyway. So I wouldn't bitch about it, guys. Just don't worry about who cares. And so we didn't. Who cares? And we made a little joke about it where I laid in the ring for a long time after they beat us, just to do something against the grain. And we kind of laughed about that, but that was all that happened. And we were known. And then the next night we show up, and Vince is at Panama City.
Man, it's such a wild time in the business, and I'm so fortunate and thankful that you were able to come here on the show and talk to me about this time, especially, like I said, that Dark Side of the Ring is covering Who Killed WCW, and I'm sure some of the footage from some of these moments we've discussed is going to be on that thing. So, Mark, seriously, thank you so much for filling in for Jake. I had a blast talking with you, brother.
Hey, I love it, man, so much. I'm glad I could help out a little bit.
And look, I know that you're selling some stuff, and actually, as a matter of fact, you and my brother are working on an online shop. But in the meantime, where can fans reach out to you in order to get in touch with you or get some merch?
The best way right now is Marcus Buff Bagwell at gmail.com. Marcus Buff Bagwell at gmail.com is the best way right now. We are going to eventually have a store. I did have a website, marcusbuffbagwell.com, but we're not going to have that anymore. We're going to have an actual store online. So you'll be able to get the information by checking out my Instagrams and my Facebook and stuff, but also on my Gmail account. Check that out, and we'll keep you posted on all of the stuff coming up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, make sure you follow Mark on social, and make sure you hit him up at his email, because he's selling some of those Asylum action figure toys, which he is going to sign and personalize for you. Plenty more over there. So reach out to him and keep your eyes peeled on social media. Again, Mark, thank you again for your time.
Thank you guys so much.
We'll see you guys next time right here on the Snake Pit.